Hey there, it's your host, Mara Glatzel, and you are listening to Even Here, Even Now, a podcast where we are devoted to sharing frank conversations and true stories about what it means to stay by your own side and meet your needs consistently, messily, and sustainably. Now, on to today's show. Hello, friends. Welcome back to Even Here, Even Now. And today we are talking about what to do when things are hard. And this podcast episode is going to include some tough love and real self-care for those of us who are in it right now. And I've been talking to clients all week. I have been hearing from friends in my personal life, and I know that so many of us are in it right now. And I also know that this is a time when humans, brilliant, fabulous, lovable, amazing humans in my orbit, have a tendency to put themselves and their needs on the back burner. It's kind of like, all right, the shit's really hitting the fan right now, and I'm going to just, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just hit pause on me and my silly little needs until things get better. And I'm going to focus on the task at hand. I'm going to try to work my way to a place where it's going to be easier to take care of myself by like getting through my to-do list or dealing with whatever is here or. And the first piece of tough love that I want to give you is I don't want you to do that. Patently, it is unhelpful to do that, right? I think that for most of us, the moments where we need ourselves, need our care the most are oftentimes also, brilliantly, coincidentally, the moments when we resist it the most. And there's so many reasons for that, so many real, true human reasons for that. But I want to talk about it as a pattern, right? A pattern of putting you and your foundational needs and your care and the things that keep you going on the other side of something that you have deemed more important than you. And underlying this belief is this idea of like, I'm fine. I'm always fine, right? I can handle it. I can go without. I can keep making it work. I can get by. And it's not that you can't get by. I'm sure you have been doing that for large swaths of your life. It's not that you can't do that, but this is a form of self-abandonment. Believing that the thing at hand, whatever the thing is more important and pressing than your things because it's an emergency to be fixed or it's something that belongs to somebody else, ergo more important than whatever is happening for you. And this pattern is so tricky because when we get stuck in it, there's always something more pressing to put our needs on the other side of. And so what I want to invite you to do instead is back your way right out of that all or nothing. Like I'm either completely ignoring myself and my needs, putting them on the back burner, or I somehow magically have the capacity to like dive in and meet all of my needs. Neither of those realities are going to be helpful. And I'm going to invite you to meet yourself in the middle a little bit. And the first thing is that we have got to become better equipped at sitting in a space of uncertainty, at being with our discomfort. Because so often what is interwoven in this pattern is a preference for doing as a strategy to avoid the discomfort of feeling and being in the uncertainty. I know, I'll raise my hand right up. I know that I far and above prefer a job or a task or something to focus on than really being in a space of discomfort or uncertainty with myself. And that for much of my life, I was willing to do almost anything to avoid that space of uncertainty, partially because I was buying into a story that being uncomfortable meant I was doing something wrong. So cue, get back to the fixing, right? Doing all the things. Because if you feel awkward or weird or mushy for just a second, then back to the drawing board. Like things have gone off base. But I think that the other part, if I'm really honest with myself, is that it just didn't feel good. It felt better to be of service. It felt better to be in the mix. It felt better to be receiving external validation for how good I am at doing things than being with myself in a space of uncertainty. I've really seen this shift over the last 6 years, right? Because starting in COVID, I started noticing that in many of my groups and my one-to-one coaching, that the big thing that we were working with was how to be in a space of very profound uncertainty, of not knowing. When are things going to open back up? What's going to happen? What is COVID really? How is it going to impact me? How is it going to impact my community? How is it going to impact our way of life? When will things, quote unquote, get back to normal? And I know I'm not alone in having the opinion that things have not gotten back to normal. In many ways, people are living their pre-COVID lives. But what remains for me is profound uncertainty. And we see this with global and national politics here in the States, but also, in countries around the world. We see this in the way that things are now, and that there are so many aspects to our daily lives that we can no longer take for granted. And I think, there, of course, is innumerable privilege in the way things were. There were systems of oppression that were at play in the way things were, the way things are, of course. But I'm speaking specifically to what happens inside of our bodies when we are in this space of discomfort. Because what I'm noticing is that over the course of the last 6 years, the number of people who I work with who are burnt out has increased exponentially. And it's not that burnout didn't exist before, it certainly did. But, the multitude of things that we are expected to manage and hold and integrate on a daily basis, the amount of data, the amount of words that we come into contact with on a daily basis, the amount of information that our brain is processing. And that's on top of and aside from all of the macro and micro ways that profound uncertainty and discomfort is showing up in our personal lives, right? Things shifting, jobs ending, relationships ending, dynamics changing. And so what happens? How do we become accustomed to being in this space of uncertainty? And I think, I'm just so compelled by this topic because this is a skill that we have got to work on right now and have been needing to work on and will need to work on in the future. And so the first thing that I want to say is that learning how to sit in uncertainty is a skill that you can practice and develop. That so often what happens is that our brain, kind of our mental body, like exits the building being the physical body. And we're faced with a decision, or we're faced with something that we're thinking about, and we are already energetically like running way down the block and like around the corner. We've gone far, far away, and we're trying to figure out, with all these little tentacles, how is this going to impact me down the road? How is it going to impact me in 5 years? What will my mother think? What will this person think? How will this, affect my relationship? And so on and so on and so on. When faced with uncertainty, we have a tendency to mentally abandon our physical selves, right? To go out there, to gather data, to scan the internet, to ask ChatGPT, to survey all of our friends, to try and find the right and good and best way forward, a future-proof way forward. And this requires significant mental energy for us to be like all the way out there, trying to figure it all out. And it's seductive, but it is a fantasy that we can figure things out in such a way that we're going to make a perfect decision, that we're going to be able to know from where we are right now how something's going to impact us 2 or 5 years down the road, that we even know what life is going to look like 2 or 5 years down the road, that we are somehow in control of all of these things. And what happens in the physical body when the mental body is like down the block and around the corner and putting all of its little tentacles into all these little pots, trying to get all this information to figure out what's right and best? The body is quite literally anxious for the reunion, right? For the mental body to come back, for us to be in this present moment together. And I put that forward to you because the reality is the only thing that we can do from wherever it is that we are is make the best decisions that we can from this moment, from this body, from this pool of data that we have, like from this specific vantage point. We are never going to be able to know all of the things. And it's a fantasy. It's a fantasy that we can control our lives or make sure that bad things aren't going to happen by figuring all of these things out. But what is true is that when we climb back into our bodies and we operate from this vantage point, what we need, what conflicting needs might be present, what we want, where we are going from here, what is the next right step, just one step forward, one step forward. This is all that we can reasonably expect of ourselves. And this piece is important because one of the ways that we self-abandon in times of uncertainty is in our unreasonable expectations of ourselves, in believing that we can or should have all of the answers, that we can or should be the smartest person in every room that we walk into, that we can or should have somehow a capacity, a robust capacity, more robust than anybody else, that we can or should figure everything out perfectly yesterday, right? And that our value, our very worth as a human being is attached to our ability to do that. And so as we're sitting in that space of uncertainty, one of the most generous acts that we can offer ourselves is the truth that we're just one human being. You know, whatever it is that you believe about past lifetimes and reincarnation, all of those things, I tell myself, like, this is my first time on earth. Not that I necessarily believe that's true, but it's a helpful reframe because it's like, why do I think that I should somehow magically know more and faster the answer better than anyone else, right? The amount of pressure that I have put on myself for my entire life to be the person who fixes everything, the person who knows everything. And of course I don't. Of course I don't, right? I know I don't, but that only in the past, that only has made me work harder to know more, to be better, instead of softening into the reality that I'm going to do my best and I'm going to make the best decisions that I can from this vantage point, and I am going to make mistakes. I hate it, but it's true. And not only am I going to make mistakes, but I am allowed to make mistakes. I am allowed to not be perfect all of the time. I am allowed to fuck it all up and have to figure it out, just like every other human being on the planet. So what does it look like to tend to the discomfort? Because this is like all very high and mighty, but I'm going to tell you that human sizing my expectations, allowing myself to be a person who can make mistakes, all of these things are profoundly fucking uncomfortable. It's not like I'm sitting here thinking like, oh, this is lovely. And I do not mind at all. Like I have completely got this, right? I have thoughts and feelings about that, as I am sure that you do too. And here's what I want to say. You get to have your thoughts and feelings, all of them. It doesn't make it wrong to sit in that space of discomfort and uncertainty. It doesn't make it wrong that you make a mistake or that you don't know everything, right? Just because it makes you feel really uncomfortable to be with that reality. You get to feel how you feel, and it doesn't make that thing any less true. So actually, before we talk about tending to discomfort, I'm going to talk about doing it sad, doing it scared, doing it frustrated. I'm going to tell you a little anecdote, which is that I have a 9-year-old daughter, and she is prone to what she describes as her emotional roller coaster. And it is my honor and privilege as her mother to ensure that she is being raised in such a way that all feelings are welcome, that no feelings are bad or off the table, that she is allowed to feel all of the things that she feels inside at all of the time. But it is also my honor and privilege as her mother to hold the container for what it is that we need to do collectively as a family to meet all of our needs, right? Not just her needs in the moment. And I want to backtrack to say that this is really important to me because she's in 4th grade. This is a time where I'm noticing more and more people are starting to say things like, oh, she's just being dramatic, or, these subtle ways that we are told, especially those of us who are socialized as women, as girls, that we are told that we are like indulging in our feelings, that we are making something out of nothing, that we are not appropriate and a well-equipped experts to our own experience, right? That somehow we are prone to like these fits of drama. So I don't want her to receive that message from me. And I also don't want my inner child to receive that message from me. I'm always keenly thinking about raising her while also raising myself back up. So she was having a fit this one day, and it went on and on and on and on. And I was sitting with her, and she was having all of these big feelings, and she was really grumpy. And we had a couple of things that we needed to do that afternoon. And it was just me with her and her sister. And one of the things that we had to do was go to the library because we had these overdue library books, and I had promised her sister that we would go to the library. And so I told my 4th grader that, I see that you're in a really bad mood. You are absolutely welcome to feel however it is that you feel. We need to go to the library, and you're welcome to bring your bad mood to the library. She did take me up on that offer. And we went to the library, and she stomped around at the library, and she was in a really bad mood at the library. And, I was like, okay, can we just like keep it rolling? And she very deftly reminded me, you said I could bring my bad mood to the library, and I am, and I have. And you said that was okay. And so it has to be okay that I'm here and I'm in a bad mood, which of course it was. So my invitation to you is that you get to feel however you feel about it. You don't have to like the circumstances of what you are dealing with right now. You don't have to like how uncertain things feel or how uncomfortable things feel or the way that things are shaking out. You can be heartbroken, you can be frustrated, you can be angry, you can be terrified. You can be exactly how you are. But and also, you are your own responsibility. And showing up for yourself Showing up for your care, even when the shit is hitting the fan and you are feeling all of your feelings about it, is a powerful act of self-partnership, right? So abandoning yourself in those moments, act of self-abandonment. Showing up for yourself and for your needs in those moments, however imperfectly, right? However human-sized your expectations of yourself now are, but showing up for yourself while feeling however it is that you feel about it is an act, a radical act of self-partnership. So what does it mean to tend to your discomfort? It means that your feelings are your responsibility. So somebody else doesn't have to change or do what you want, or be who you want them to be, or, act the way that you think that they should in order for you to be okay. That your okayness is in your hands. And when I'm thinking about tending to discomfort, I'm really talking about how am I meeting myself in the feeling? I'm not talking about vanquishing the feeling or somehow eliminating the feeling or like giving myself something to like bypass the feeling. I'm really talking about how am I showing up to the challenge of tending to my uncomfortable nature today, my uncomfortable feelings, my uncomfortable thoughts. How am I showing up for my most human physical, mental, and emotional selves? And that might look like drawing a bath, or I love to use heat for discomfort. Heat is a tool that is really useful for me. I've talked about that before here. Hot water bottle, electric blanket, bath, all of these, putting my hands around a hot mug of tea, all of these ways, just washing my hands in hot water in a pinch if I'm like out somewhere in a bathroom, water itself, drinking water. I love to drink water with the intention of being flexible and fluid, like learning from the water as I am drinking it. But tending to the discomfort that is present, showing up for it, saying like, oh, whew, wow, I feel really uncomfortable right now. I really don't love this feeling. Ugh. I feel mad, sad, frustrated. But I'm willing to show up for my most foundational needs in the most basic way possible, even feeling how I'm feeling. So whether that's tending to my discomfort or meeting my need for food, right? Something that I really love to think about is like, what is the absolute most basic meal that I can get my most basic nutritional needs met? Can I scramble some eggs? Can I put some vegetable into that egg scramble? Can I add a little bit of cheese? Do I have something in my freezer that I can pull out and microwave in a pinch, right? What are the most basic ways that I can show up for myself, because I'm willing to acknowledge that even being here, even being in a space of uncertainty or discomfort requires a lot of energy. Managing my feelings in a space of discomfort or uncertainty requires a lot of energy. And it is so challenging to be here. This is not the time to skimp on my own care. It may not be the time to go all in on like whipping myself up a 4-course meal that I may not have the energy to do. But how can I show up for my most foundational needs in the easiest, most straightforward way possible? Can I move my body just a little bit? Can I, if I can't go for a walk, can I get myself outside into a little patch of sunshine and just receive the energy from the sun? Can I put on a favorite song and dance a little bit while I cry? Can I put myself in the room? I've talked before here and other places about my profound love for Zumba. Zumba is one of my absolute delights. And over the course of the last couple of weeks, which have been really challenging, I've noticed that I really don't want to go. And I have that feeling of like, ugh, I know it'll make me feel better. I know it's really good for me. I know I really enjoy it, but like I could just not even imagine getting myself from here to there. It feels like such a heavy lift. It feels so hard. And so I have made a deal with myself around going to Zumba, which is put yourself in the room and you can totally half-ass it. You don't have to go all in or do all of the moves or do it, like at maximum capacity like you usually do, but like just getting yourself to the place where the thing happens that you know you need. Taking myself to a place that I love to walk and telling myself that I can walk just for 5 minutes and then turn around and go back home if I want to. The other part that I think is really useful when showing up for yourself in a space of uncertainty is to get clear on what can be cleared away. What is not necessary or is at least negotiable during a difficult time. And, for me, this looks like, are there any promises? Like, where are the places where I'm going to commit to not going above and beyond? I'm going to do what is expected, and I'm not going to offer myself to anything else. Can I just get right into bed after putting my kids to bed? Can I leave the dishes in my sink until tomorrow morning if I'm exhausted? Sometimes this feels good and sometimes it doesn't, but here's the deal. Going back to you're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to notice oh, wow, okay, I left the dishes and then there were twice as many the next day and that actually didn't feel good. So maybe I'm not going to do that again, right? But I'm allowed to try it. I'm allowed to learn from myself, from my behavior. I'm allowed to experiment with what might feel good and notice, okay, some of these things did feel like genuine comforts and supports, and some of them felt like just delaying the inevitable of something that I'm going to have to do, and it's going to be harder or, more stressful later, and meeting yourself in the middle. But I want to end with the piece of really human-sizing your expectations of yourself, that it is unfair to expect that particularly when you are having a challenging time or you're coping with a lot or the world is the way that it is right now and it is impacting you on multiple levels, that you somehow magically you can and should have all of the answers, that you should be able to persevere no matter what you encounter, that you should be able to somehow rise above and be more and do more and have greater expectations for yourself than you would genuinely have of anybody else, and that is reasonable. That's self-abandonment. It is self-abandonment to pretend that you are not a person with feelings and needs and wants. That is a way that we extract from and exploit ourselves, that we frack our energy and we use it to amplify our self-worth, to gain approval, to gain validation, to feel like, well, at least I'm doing something because I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here in this awkward, wobbly bit. I don't want to be here in this space of not knowing. I don't want to be here in this space of uncertainty. And so with my last breath on today's call, on today's podcast, I want to say that what would it be like to meet that feeling instead of rushing past it or trying to vanquish it? What would it be like to partner with yourself where you are? To adjust your expectations of yourself based on how you feel and what you need. what it would look like to do it mad, sad, frustrated, to take your bad mood to the library if the library is where you need to go, to take your bad mood on your mental health walk, to take your bad mood to the kitchen where you are going to make yourself some scrambled eggs that you definitely don't want to eat, but you will because you know that not eating makes everything harder and everything worse. To pour yourself a glass of water because you know that being dehydrated makes everything harder and everything worse. To truly honoring the fact that you are a human being with needs, and for better or for worse, and we can talk about this all day long, and we will talk about it on future podcast episodes, your needs are your responsibility. And that really is a good thing, because you, out of all the people on the planet, are best equipped to meet those needs in a way that helps you feel seen, heard, held, cherished, cared for in such a specific and bespoke way that it's meant just for you. That's what feels good. That's the kind of care that feels good to receive, and you are uniquely qualified to offer that kind of care to yourself if you are willing to stay with the uncertainty and be in the discomfort and partner with yourself during your most challenging moments. And I hope that you are, because I want that kind of care for you. That kind of care for me too, right? We all deserve to be held, to be cared for when things are hard. Thank you. See you next time. Thanks for listening to Even Here, Even Now with Mara Glatzel. If you want my support in learning to stay by your own side and nourish your needs, dance on over to maraglatzel.com/quiz to take my quiz to figure out what you need right now and receive my best tools for how to meet those needs with a greater sense of ease and confidence. If you love today's show, please leave us a rating or review wherever you subscribe to this podcast. It helps more than you know. And as always, permission loves company. If there's a human in your life that you think can benefit from this conversation, I would be so grateful if you shared it with them. Thank you. See you next time.